Well, hi there, it's Mathew Blades, and boy, did you press play on a good one today. We have a very special interview with Lukis Mack. Cannot wait for you guys to hear this podcast. And I want to give you a little bit of a history on what you're getting ready to listen to so that you know why and where and when and all the things. So you know that my buddy Chris Powell and I created a podcast a couple of years ago called the I Needed That podcast. We've since put that project on hold, but one of the final interviews that we did never got released. So I called Chris last week and I was like, listen, man, we've got this great interview with Lukis Mack and people need to hear this interview. You mind if I put it on Learn from People Who Lived It? And he was like, oh my God, by all means, go nuts. Release this thing. And so that's what we are going to do today. So Lukis Mack is what I call, he's a breathwork specialist for the stars. He has a pretty amazing roster of famous people that he works with, and we'll talk about some of those folks within the podcast today. But he does shamanic breathwork. And once upon a time, this is going on maybe 5 months ago or so, he invited Chris and I to his Airbnb in the west side of the valley, and he put both of us through a shamanic breathwork experience. We went to the house, we sipped on some cacao, we talked for a long while, we went up on his rooftop, we had this incredible experience, some of which we'll talk about in this interview today, and I can't even tell you how much it impacted me. I've always known that breath work is such a powerful tool. Having, become a meditation practitioner myself for the last decade or so, I understand its value, but I just don't know why I don't reach for it more. It's so incredible. And learning the skill of shamanic breathwork, and specifically the breathwork that Lukis Mack and his partner Haley talk about in their Owaken series, is just incredible. And so I encourage you to sit back today, listen in to what we're talking about, and if some of this stuff speaks to you, you can check out the Owaken website. You can check out, he's actually got this incredible gathering of people, and I think it's sometime in, I want to say September or something like that, but it could be more like November. We may actually even talk about it in this podcast. I can't remember. It's been so long ago since we recorded it, but he is coming to the Phoenix area where he's going to put like 400 people in a gigantic conference room, and every one of us is going to be moved. It's going to be incredible.
Looking for no bullshit conversation about mental health? Find Learn from People Who Lived It wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from People Who Lived It.
Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
Guy, look at that guy. What's up, man?
I love you both. Thank you so much for having me here.
I love you too, my friend. How are you? It's been a couple months.
Yeah, I'm doing amazing. And I'm really here just to be of service, like we spoke about before we jumped on the call. I hope that all the listeners can get something out of this conversation. And thank you for having me on here. It's a privilege to be here.
So let's start at the very beginning, Lukis Mack. Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about yourself. What would people be surprised to learn about you?
Yeah, I grew up in New Zealand. I'm now living in the United States. I grew up in a small town in Auckland and moved around a lot and had a lot of different things happen in my childhood that I guess left me feeling dysregulated and unsafe and not being able to really process my emotions. And from there, it took me on a journey of really wanting to understand myself and what I had gone through and the meaning that I had made of it, and wanting to heal from the past. And, that eventually led me to the United States where I am now, but it's been a long journey.
I was just going to ask, when did this guy come into your life? I know that you have kind of a Chris connection, which I think is such a beautiful thing. And it didn't start like just last week. Like this has been brewing for several years.
Yeah, well, like many of the listeners, I found Chris online and through the TV show. And was just in a deep resonance with him and the way he served and the way he led, because he showed me what it was like to lead from the heart. And, the transformation that was happening in people's life wasn't just on a physical level. It was on, a mental and emotional and spiritual level. So I was witnessing all of that happening, and I was just in awe of it and really inspired by the way that Chris was leading from the heart. And I knew that one day that we would meet up when the time was right. And, it was awesome to connect. And yeah, here we are.
Lukis, I haven't had a chance just to your face to say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know you and I messaged a handful of times afterward, but thank you from the bottom of my heart for that experience, for allowing me to unload that emotion, and for being there to support me through it.
It's my favorite thing to do.
It really is a gift that you have, and I don't say that lightly. And again, because I actually went into it a little bit guarded, and also kind of forcing my own intentions of it, saying, okay, look, I'm going through some stress and everything in my life, but at the same time, as the emotion really started to come out, you were there for me, and I could feel just your pure intentions and your heart through the process, and it gave me permission to unload that much more. So by the time we were done, I felt 100 pounds lighter.
You mentioned that you entered this breathwork session a little guarded, and I think that that's a real common thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And there's probably a couple of different ways, and this is worth kicking around. There's probably a couple of different things that send people to that state of being guarded. Number one, they don't know enough about it, and so it's just fear that's showing up because they don't know what's going to happen. The other thing that I wonder too is, are you just genuinely afraid of the ugly cry? And are you afraid of going there and I don't just mean you, but I mean other people too, because I want Lukis to answer this question first. Do you think people show up and they're just not willing to let it go yet?
Yeah, I think there's a few different things that's happening. Like you said, I think we can enter into the space, and when we know that we're going to be doing deep work and it's going to be vulnerable, our guard comes up because we've been so conditioned to be in the comfort zone. And, you know, challenging and facing off with that resistance is, you know, oftentimes it is difficult. And there can be parts of us that don't feel safe to explore and express our emotions. You know, the parts of us that we don't want to look at, and the things that we've been through that have hurt us. And sometimes that feels intense or, you know, overwhelming to revisit. But as we start to give ourselves permission to move through that resistance and we face off with it from a place of courageous love, then we can move through it, we can process it, and we can let it go. And the other aspect is, I think people are skeptical as well. You know, if it's their first time experiencing something like this, they've seen a lot of things online, but they don't know if it's real or what's really going down. They don't understand the science behind it. And there's also a lot of people out there that probably don't have people's best interests at heart. So there's many different things going on. And I think it's important for people to find someone that they resonate with and that they trust. And then if they're going to be working with a therapist or any type of holistic modality, that they find someone that they do feel comfortable with. And that fear will still come up. You know, that's a natural part of growth. But when you feel safe enough to explore your own inner world, then you can move through it with more grace and more ease.
Yeah, you brought up a few things that I really would love to kind of drill down on. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I actually went into it with a healthy amount of skepticism also. Again, I was forcing my attention. I want to go into this invigorated, mental clarity, clear, fresh. Can you explain, because I'm still trying to process it, what happened? Like, what?
It's such a great question. What did you do to us?
Yeah, I'm still trying to process it.
Yeah.
So could you explain, like, what was that?
Yeah, well, our breath is the first thing we do when we come into this life. It's the last thing we do when we leave, and it regulates everything in between. So our breath is controlled by our autonomic nervous system, making it an automatic process. So when we go through highly stressful or traumatic events, our sympathetic nervous system comes online. That's, our fight or flight, and it seeks to protect us. And a lot of the time when we don't have an opportunity to process the stress and the tension and the emotions that we felt during those experiences, then all of that pent up energy and emotion gets stored in the body. It gets frozen. So we're walking around with these incomplete stress responses and this unprocessed emotion in our body. So in a breathwork journey, when we're doing the therapeutic work, which, goes really deep, we're activating the sympathetic nervous system, which is like the doorway into the stress response. So we're bringing up that stress and tension and those emotions to be looked at, to be processed, to be released from the body. It's a somatic type of therapy. And then from there, we're just giving ourselves permission to feel what's coming up and to let it go as it's coming up. So that's the process, but there's so many different aspects to it, because there's the part of the brain, the limbic system, that processes memory and emotion, and that works in a non-linear way. So it processes the past, the present, and the future simultaneously happening now. So when we've been through an experience in the past that we haven't been able to complete those stress responses, and we haven't been able to release those emotions, that we felt during those experiences, our brain will literally overlay the past onto the present. So many of us are walking around with these incomplete experiences from the past that we've been through. And even though we might not consciously be aware of them, the body's still registering, the body's still holding on, the body's still creating these patterns. And we all know that when we don't have tools to process stress and emotions, often leads to unhealthy coping mechanisms. So many of the listeners might recognize that they have different coping mechanisms that they use in times of stress, or when they're not feeling regulated, or they feel like there's emotions coming up and they don't want to face them. They might turn to these coping mechanisms. So, having the tools to process all of that is a game changer.
Okay, this is actually starting to make a lot more sense, because the irony is that I've always used breathing to activate my parasympathetic nervous system, right, to calm yourself down.
That's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, oh, I'm feeling stressed. Now I'm going to focus on breathing. I'm going to calm myself down. Whereas in your practice, you use breathing to activate the sympathetic nervous system, to bring that. We
use both. Yeah. There's like the daily maintenance, and usually in the daily maintenance practices, that could be box breathing, or, different techniques that you're using to support you to like down regulate and to move into that parasympathetic nervous system to self-regulate. Those practices are so important, because like you said, during times when we're triggered, or where, we have things coming up, our sympathetic nervous system's already activated. So in those times, we want to down regulate into the parasympathetic nervous system. We want to take our foot off the gas and onto the brakes and slow everything down, so we can start to think clearly and make, clear, aligned decisions. So those practices are extremely helpful in daily life, and a part of a daily maintenance practice that you'll use. Yeah.
Yes.
So this makes a lot of sense to me. And just to bring this all back home for everybody that's listening, as we are on the journey of transformation, and we're talking about the mental, the spiritual, and of course, physical health, something Lukis just said there really, really got my attention. When we can regulate how, we're thinking, we're able to make better decisions. So think about that from your standpoint. People that are trying to lose significant amounts of weight or get healthier, whatever that's looking like for them from that physical standpoint. If you're in your head, you're going to continue to make bad choices, like the choices that aren't serving you is maybe the best way to put that. But if you can drop out of your head and drop into your body and know what's right, well, then maybe you'll choose healthier meals. Maybe you'll choose workouts. Isn't that how you're hearing this too?
I am. And because he was saying that, people use other coping mechanisms. I know a lot of the folks listening, they'll be using food or alcohol.
Yeah, that was me too.
Sure. Yes, that's right. Because you struggled with obesity for quite some time.
I struggled with negative self-talk, and I was really overweight as a kid and felt extremely overwhelmed and had no tools to be able to process stress and emotions. And, that's what led me down this path to figure it out.
And once you started to process it, well, if you're no longer suffering from that trauma, that subconscious trauma, then there's nothing, you're not trying to solve the problem anymore, because the problem has already been lifted. There's nothing, there's no problem to solve.
Right.
So not to make this about me or anything, but going back to what
it is your podcast.
Yeah. But again, I'm going to share the story because I hope everyone listening can maybe also start to realize as well, but I was carrying some shit that I didn't even know I was still carrying. Yeah. And I was carrying. So as I literally started to ugly cry and sob to the point where you could hear me about 15 feet away.
I was like, God, did this guy get it together?
Yeah, but what was coming up?
I'm just kidding, everybody.
No, I know you were.
I'm just kidding, everybody.
But it was uncontrollable. And what was really mind-blowing to me is that I thought, if anything, I was going to be releasing any kind of stress about just the last couple of years where I'm just grinding, and it's work stress, and I'm trying really hard, and I'm rebuilding my foundation. I'm doing the whole, the single dad thing, and it's just, I'm carrying a lot.
It's a lot.
But that wasn't coming up as I was crying. And I can't quite put words to it, but as I was sobbing, pain from 6 years ago, 7 years ago, like relationship pain, marital pain, like all those things, that's what was coming up. And I thought it had been solved, but I was sobbing it out. And I don't know how to explain how I felt that it was that, but it was that because those were the images that were flashing through my mind as I was sobbing. That's how it was. I had to talk through it just now, but that's what it was. It was like those, literally there were images that were flashing through my mind as I was sobbing that I forgot about. They were tucked so far back, and that started coming out. And then of course with that, then other things started to flash, like you started to flash through my mind with everything that you've been going through. And I was crying for you because I know a lot of the things that you've been through. And I started to feel, but it was almost after releasing all this other shit that I was holding on to first, that's when I started to feel more compassion for you and the empathy for you. And that's when I started to, I found myself crying for my kids and all these different things.
Yeah, we can break that down for the listener too, because it's so important for the listeners to understand. Like, that's such a beautiful thing, Chris, and such a gift that you gave to yourself that day. And, there's so many different things that are happening in the body, but the body has its own priorities of what it wants to release first. So we can go on with our own intentions and we can have the things that we want to work on, but the body has its own priorities, and the body knows what to do to heal when we're out of the way. So what I mean by that is when we're doing the breathwork techniques, our brainwaves are shifting. We're moving from our analytical thinking mind, which is associated with beta brainwaves, and we're moving into a calm, relaxed state, into theta and alpha, where we're relaxed, but we're going into the stimulation of the sympathetic nervous system. So our body is converting our breath into energy. So we're starting to feel energy in our body, and we have our eyes closed, and we're exploring our own, our internal world of the things that we've been through on the past that maybe we haven't had a chance to sit with and process. And the body knows exactly what to do to bring them up to the surface so we can process them and let them go. And it's also an intuitive process. And many of your listeners might resonate with this. Our intuition speaks to us in different ways. And for many people, that might be through intuitively seeing, or intuitively hearing, or intuitively feeling, or intuitively knowing. So whatever way your intuition works with you, it's going to start showing you things in the breathwork journey. And it is an intuitive process of just being curious. And as you become curious, then things will be revealed to you in that process, because you're not in your analytical thinking mind. You've moved out of the way. You're in this deeply relaxed state, and you can start to understand things on another level. So
you mentioned curiosity before. As I started into the breathing, and I'm sure you felt this as well, you start to feel your body buzz.
And, for sure.
But it was such a unique kind of experience. It was electric.
Yes. It feels like somebody's plugging a socket into your feet.
It literally felt like, and that also because you told us it was going to happen before it happened. And because of that trust, I started to open up even more. And it was about 10 minutes in, this electricity started just waving through me, and you felt it as well. And then that's what also elicited that curiosity. And once the curiosity was there, that was when the floodgates opened. But you, Lukis, as it started to happen, you came over to me and you had your hands on my head and on my shoulders, and you were like tapping by my rib cage. What were you doing?
Yeah, so we've created our own modality called Owaken Breathwork, and we have over 200 trauma-informed certified facilitators all around the world. So if people are interested in this, they can look on our website, and they can go through the different facilitators, and they can see who they resonate with and who they feel drawn to. So I just want to say that first and foremost, there is support out there, and doesn't matter where you are in the world, there is support. So with Awaken,
super fast, and where can people find that? What's the website?
Yeah, our website is owaken.com, OWAKEN.com.
By the way, anyone who might be going through something, again, whether you know it or whether you don't, right. Whether you find yourself self-sabotaging and you can't figure out why, just out of curiosity, I say check it out. OWAKEN.com. And
100%.
Oh man.
Strap in, get ready.
Yeah, and
get ready.
Yeah, just take a look and explore it and educate yourself and see if it's something you'd be interested in trying, because again, it blew my mind.
All right, back to your question.
Yeah,
I want to know what is he doing? What are you working on?
What were you doing when you were like holding my head and on my shoulders and tapping underneath under my chest?
Yeah, so with Awaken Breathwork, we have our pillar is sharing breathwork techniques voice, but we also use toning, tapping, and touch. Toning is a way that we can move emotion through our voice. So when you're in a breathwork journey, a therapeutic journey, you're going into a non-ordinary state of consciousness. And sometimes there can be a lot of energy that's created in the body. Your body's working to release that stress and tension. So sometimes using your voice to make sound is a beautiful way to process that stress and tension. And then we have our tapping. And tapping is, there's many modalities of tapping, emotional freedom technique, and different things that work on tapping on the body, specifically on different points of the body, on the meridian system. And if anyone's familiar with Chinese medicine and experienced acupuncture before, then that's working on the meridian system. And the meridian system is like an electrical system through the body that can be disrupted through stress and trauma. So we just seek to allow that energy to flow, to release these blockages that are in the body. So tapping on specific points of the body when you're in a breathwork journey is really helpful to support the body to start processing. And then touch, working on different body work techniques, myofascial release, and getting into the tissues where we might be storing that tension or that emotion, and just supporting the body to process it. And that's all we're doing as facilitators. Like each and every single one of you, that experience this are your own healers, and the body knows exactly what to do. As facilitators, all we're doing is supporting the body to move that stress and that tension and process those emotions, and creating safety where you feel comfortable enough to go within and to explore your own inner world.
So in the world of transformation, where does this land in the journey, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I think for those who are aware enough, I implore that they look to explore it preparing for the journey. While they're preparing. Just because I almost think about it like a parking brake that's on, that again, a lot of times people don't even know that it's on. So whether you're preparing for the journey, if you can start to address these traumas, past traumas, even better. People saw that in our show. When I would take people through the journey of transformation, what would we do is I would take someone back to
use Bruce. It's the best example, I think.
Yes. Of course, we spent countless hours with therapists as he was talking about what he was dealing with his father. But then the opportunity, it actually happened when he was on the journey to confront his father. And from all the trauma and all the abuse that he suffered at his father's hands as a child, it was the moment he confronted his father that released the parking brake, and Bruce's transformation really began that day.
Yeah, because my opinion is that it's not critical that it's the first thing you do. Like I think you can start down a journey of transformation, and dealing with your demons doesn't have to be the first thing that you do. But I think it shows up somewhere in the journey, and the only people that really go through it all the way are the people that do deal with it.
1,000%. And see, because the objective here is not just to help people on a journey of, say, weight loss, for example. It's not about just losing the weight. It's about keeping it off. And a lot of times when people are on the journey, especially as their body starts to change and they realize that this is their new reality, and it comes with a lot of responsibility. But as their body starts to change, a lot of times people will start to sabotage themselves, and they'll start to revert back, and they don't know why. And a lot of the reason they don't know why is because sometimes, and all too often, there is all kinds of subconscious trauma that they're hanging on to in the past. So this is why, as people are on the journey, if there is something, if you keep going back to those old behaviors, there is something unresolved there. And I think that's where this could be an incredibly powerful tool for a lot of people. So Matthew, I'm glad you asked that question, because if you're aware of it, again, start working on it now through whatever means that you feel necessary, whether it's cognitive behavioral, whether it's breath work, whether it's EDMR, whatever that might be. But if you're
eventually you got to knock on the door. How do you feel about that, Lukis?
Yeah, I think that's so important. A lot of people might find it show up where they are keeping themselves in a holding pattern, meaning they're not able to move forward in a specific area of their life. They just keep going around in circles, and they don't know why, and they try and challenge themselves, or they do, they start a certain thing to create positive change, but they keep reverting back to the same old thing. And that might be there also might be a lot of negative talk or limiting beliefs, these stories that we tell ourselves on a daily basis, where the listeners might start to notice, like, yes, I am telling myself these things. I do hear that voice, going in the background it's making up these excuses, or it's trying to stop me from moving forward on my path. And one of the things I loved about what you do, Chris, is we had that conversation around keeping promises to yourself. keeping promises to yourself. And that's so important, because when we set out to create positive change in any area of our life, there can be parts of us that seek to keep us in the old familiar way of being. And then as we step forward on that journey, we have to face off with those parts and move through that resistance from a place of love. But it's a fierce, courageous love. It's the type of love that doesn't back down, that doesn't make up excuses, that doesn't commit to one thing and say another. It's the type of love that it really, commits to your own promises and allows yourself to move through that resistance and to create transformation in your life. And like Chris said, it's like giving yourself permission to face off with the things that you've been through in the past that have hurt you, that might be keeping you in that way of being, is a part of the journey. Now, where you are on that journey when it comes to the stages of change and what you feel ready for is up to you. And only you'll know that, because it's really important that you do trust that. You might be at a stage in your life that you're not ready to process your emotions on that deeper level. You don't feel comfortable with that, or you don't yet feel safe to do that. But there's so many other things that you can start to do to support you. And incorporating a daily breathwork practice is one of those things. Starting to regulate your nervous system, starting to, look at your self-talk. And when you do notice that you are in a negative state, or you're giving your attention, your energy, and your power to these negative thought forms or these limiting beliefs, then that's where you can start to do the work. That's where the work starts. In that moment, when you notice, when you become conscious of it, that's when you can seek to create a shift, create a change, and challenge those parts from love.
So I got a question for you. So say anyone out there listening, they catch themselves in a negative state. What's something that they can do right then and there?
I love this. Okay, this is where it's going to get really juicy.
I'm big on clapping, Lukis.
Yes.
Like, I'm big in like those patterns show up, and I'm like, stop.
Yes.
I think that's so powerful. Stop.
Yeah, this is where it's going to get really juicy for the audience listening. Okay,
Let's
so there's a
go.
part of the brain called the RAS, the reticular activating system, and its job is it's like a filtering system between our conscious and our unconscious mind. And its job is to find more of what we focus on.
Wow.
So if we are focusing continuously on the negative and why we're not good enough and why we're not worthy and all the things that are going wrong in our life, then that part of our brain is going to seek to find evidence of why we're right.
Oh, that's what Nicole Vignola was talking about.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
I'm totally on board now.
Exactly.
So the RAS can work for us and it can work against us. And the reason it can work for us, if we have that awareness, like, hold on a minute, I'm telling myself the story that isn't actually true. I'm telling myself the story that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy, or I'm making up an excuse of why I'm not able to commit to my goals, the very thing that I know that I set out to do. When we notice that limiting, mindset coming up, the best way to do it is create an interference pattern. And an interference pattern can look like clapping, or it can look like, looking in the mirror, telling yourself some positive affirmations. It can look like a breathwork practice. It doesn't have to be a deeper therapeutic breathwork practice. It could be 10 deep breaths to regulate yourself, to come back into the present moment. And then I found one of the most powerful ways is to shift our state into the practice of gratitude, because the practice of gratitude is so much more powerful than we think it is, because what it's really doing to that part of the brain, the RES, is it's providing real life evidence of how we are supported. And once we find that evidence of how we are supported, and we keep telling ourselves and we keep showing ourselves and we keep feeling and connecting into that felt sense that we are supported, then we're in a totally different state of being.
Okay. So
I understand gratitude on a completely different level now. You're incredible, Lukis, and the gift that you are to this world is just I had to have to stop and say that to you, man. Like the way you just put that, I think turned the light on for so many people about why gratitude works. Brilliant.
I love it, man. Yeah, let's freaking go. So you find yourself in a negative place. Boom. The moment that awareness happens, interference pattern, snapping, clapping, look in the mirror, do something. You say 10 deep breaths. How should people be breathing if they're going to take 10 deep breaths? Is it in through the mouth, out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth? Should they hold it? What do we do?
Yeah, so in daily life, the healthiest way to breathe is in and out your nose.
Okay.
And when we're just in daily life, we're just existing, we should be down regulating. We should be breathing down into our lungs. Most of us, when we're in that sympathetic state in daily life and we feel stressed and we feel out of control and we seek to reach for those coping mechanisms, our breath is short, it's shallow, and the best thing we can do is bring our breath down into our lungs and our diaphragm. And as we're doing that, our belly will expand out with every inhale, and with every exhale, our belly will draw in. So we're down regulating, we're slowing everything down. If you just take 10 deep diaphragmatic breaths, that will support you to create that pattern interference. It will shift you out of that state of stress where you can make, clear decisions.
I'm doing it right now.
So
Are you doing it?
breathing in and out the nose in everyday life is the best way to go. But when you're practicing breath work, and using it for a daily practice, there's many different techniques you can use. You can breathe in through the nose. You can breathe out through the mouth. You can bring your breath up if you're wanting to go into more of that activation. If you're feeling tired or, you feel like you need some energy, then bringing your breath up is going to be a good way that you can start to upregulate and start to connect into that healthy sympathetic state where you feel energized, where you feel alert, where you feel like you can do the things that you want to do. So it all depends on how you're feeling. If you are feeling overwhelmed, if you are feeling anxious, if you are feeling out of control on any level, then you want to be putting your foot on the gas and down regulating and breathing down into your lungs. And again, if you find yourself sleepy or you need energy, then you might want to up regulate and bring your breath up. And that could be in through the nose and out through the mouth. So yeah, these are the things that I would recommend. And it really just depends on how you're feeling on the day. But there is so many breathing techniques out there. And one practice that we've created is a 5-minute daily breathwork practice. And it's something that people can do every single day to help them, to support them, to release stress and tension. And it's called Owaken Daily. And it's completely free. Anyone can do it now. It's on our website, awaken.com. You can find it. You can use the practice for free and you can share it with your friends and family. And it will really, really support you on a daily basis to let go of that stress.
I love that.
More and more people are adopting this. As a matter of fact, and we didn't bring you on to talk about this specifically, Lukis, but you work with some pretty well-known people to help them regulate their breath work. And, we work with people that are high-level athletes who are getting ready to go in and have a serious combat on their hands. And I'm curious, how do you prepare some of these folks you work with to go in there and whoop some ass with the right mindset? Like, can you help us understand why that would be cool? Because there's a lot of athletes that are probably listening to our podcast too, and it will be good for them as well.
Yeah, so I support people on different levels. It really comes down to the person. Everyone is super unique, and it comes down to understanding people's stress responses. So many people have, a different connection to how we deal with stress, and, our nervous system and our breath is intrinsically connected into that. So we have the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. And many of us have different dominant stress responses, how we deal with stress. So when I'm working with a client, I seek to understand how they deal with stress. Once I know that, I have the map to work with them and to support them. When we're going into high pressure situations, whether it be, them having to perform at their best, there's a lot of pressure. And there's stress that comes up. Now, that stress isn't necessarily bad because there can be adaptive stress that seeks to support us to grow stronger and to be our best, But what I do is I find the unhealthy stress. I find the things that are taking them out of the present moment. I look at their mindset and what they're giving energy and attention to that might be drawing away their ability to perform at their best. So once I identify anything that isn't supporting them to perform at their best, then I seek to help them to process it and let it go through breath work and somatic therapy. So every individual is different on that, but it's just about understanding where the client is at. And then also there's the part.
Are you fight, flight, fawn, or freeze? Is that the four?
It's funny. Yeah. When I was a kid, I used to freeze.
Okay.
And then as I've gotten older, there's definitely more fight, but it's a balance between fight and freeze.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you? What are you?
I think I'm a tendency to be a fawn. And I don't understand fawn through and through, but that would be somebody who maybe shuts down a little bit, who backs up a little bit, who doesn't engage. Is that right?
Usually with fawn, it can show up where we abandon our own needs.
There it is.
at the detriment to ourselves.
There it
so
is.
we say yes when we mean no. We people please.
Wow.
We are constantly in a state of giving our attention and energy to others, but we're not really doing that for ourselves.
Maybe I got a little fun.
Party of one right
that is
here.
Absolutely you.
I don't want to talk about me on this podcast so much, but I do want to ask you a question, Lucas. When we were doing our session, you mentioned that my lips turned blue, and I haven't been able to forget that. And I'm wondering if you can, similar to his question earlier, like, what the hell happened? Like, why would my lips have turned blue during that whole thing? Didn't you find that weird?
I certainly did.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is where we get into the conversation of the metaphysical, the spiritual. We are, human beings having this human experience, but we are also spiritual beings, meaning we exist beyond this physical form. So one of the things that can happen in breathwork is we go into a non-ordinary state of consciousness. And as we're exploring our own inner world and we're processing our emotions and we're letting go of stress, we're also connecting into so much intuitive guidance that's flowing through. And this doesn't happen for everyone, but it's one of the things that is possible. And as a part of exploring our inner world, we can also explore other places. So just like when we go into a dream state at night, our spirit travels and we explore different things and have different experiences. The same thing in a breathwork journey where our spirit can explore different places and it can start to gather information and retrieve things and bring things back to the present moment. So many people will have an out-of-body experience when they are in these journeys. And that's just one of the things that can happen. Now, that won't happen for everyone. That's quite a unique thing. But it does happen.
I know you do a lot of traveling and you do work with some very, very important people and, that are like super high performers, but you also take some time to work with large groups of people in different settings. And in fact, right after my post, I had a lot of close friends and family reaching out. They said, when is he coming back?
The same thing, man.
And so, and I know that you travel and you actually perform these Awaken ceremonies all around the world. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So we'll be
coming to Phoenix.
Yeah, we'll be in Phoenix, Arizona in September.
Okay.
So I'm really, really excited for that.
Where can people find you and find out where you're traveling next if they want this experience with you? Of course, you can go to awaken.com to find out everything about the breathwork, et cetera. Yeah, where can they get this schedule, this traveling schedule?
Yeah, on awaken.com, on our website, the whole schedule's there. And the live experience is 6 hours. So it's a direct experience of transformation and healing.
Lucas, we're going to get a final word from you in a minute, but we love to play Name That Tune with everybody that shows up on our podcast. And we've selected a song for you today that I think is appropriate. So I'm going to give you like the opening 10 seconds to the song and give you a chance to give me the title and the artist. Are you ready to play?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, this is totally appropriate.
It is. It's very appropriate. Might not be easy, but we'll see. Okay.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
All right, that's all you get. That's all you get. Yeah. Do you have it?
Yeah, I know the song. I actually have it on a playlist, but I can't remember the title of it. Yeah.
Is it by? Who's it by?
I'm not sure.
It's Pearl Jam, and the song is Just Breathe.
There you go.
Let's go.
Just Breathe.
Yeah, such a beautiful song.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful song. And it should be noted in this moment that Lucas put together a incredible playlist for us while we were going on our own journey, and it was spectacular.
I don't remember much of it because I was in the seventh dimension, but yes, I'm sure it was amazing.
It was so good.
Yes.
It was so good. Well, Lucas, final thoughts from you as we wrap up today.
Yeah, I just want to remind people that no matter where you are on the journey, that your past doesn't have to define you. It doesn't matter what you've been through. If you're willing, if you feel ready, if you are open enough to explore your own inner world and the things that you've been through that have hurt you, you can move beyond it. You can create that forward momentum in your life, and you can start to, create a life that feels expansive and open and free, and, where you can connect to more joy and all the good things. So don't be afraid to work on yourself. Doesn't matter where you're at. Your past doesn't have to define you, and you are your own healer.
That is such a great reminder and such a great lesson, that last bit, right? You are your own healer. I think so many times, myself included, I remember going through my healing journey a few years ago, and it was like, I need somebody else to do this for me. I need somebody else to tell me what to do. I don't know. I'm lost. I can't find my way. And one of the most important mantras that I took from my spiritual journey was get back to knowing because you do. Innately, we all know what we are supposed to do. We have a feeling that's guiding us, whether it's a call to breathwork, a call to plant medicine, a call to meditation, a call to church, a call to ending a relationship, a job, whatever it is. We all have that little voice inside of our heads, and it's our job to get better at listening to it, to figure out what we need to do. Because as Lukis just said, we are our own healers. I really encourage you to check out the Owaken Breathwork website that they've got set up. It's fantastic. He's actually got a little 5-minute, what I call chill the fuck out session. And it is just tremendous. It's just a 10, 20, 30 breath work, a little exercise. And I will tell you that I feel so much better after I do that 5-minute exercise. And he gives that away for free on his website. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It. A special thanks to Lukis Mack and to my buddy Chris Powell for getting together to do not just that experience, but to record that interview for other folks that might need to hear it and be exposed to shamanic breathwork. Peace and love, guys. Have a great week, and we will see you next week here on another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
We have 3 goals with Learn from People Who Lived It. 1. To help you feel less alone. 2. Encourage you to seek out a coach, a therapist, a church, anyone who can help you get through your journey and find some healing. 3. When you're ready, share your story with us.
Find Learn from People Who Lived It wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from People Who Lived It.